These are immune system cells. And this is a host organism under attack by 1 million bacteria. It's a massive army, but the intruders are about to experience a few setbacks. In just a few minutes, 99% of the invaders were decimated. It's a formidable effort by the immune system cells. And it's also not human. You just saw an experiment from the Free University of Berlin in Germany investigating the very complex immune systems of insects. The biologist Jens Rolf is leading a team of researchers trying to understand how insects defend themselves against harmful invaders. This project could help humans find new antibiotic treatments. It could also, with the support of other medications, recover drugs that no longer work in some patients because bacteria have become resistant to them.
So insects obviously are faced with the same problem like we are as humans. They're surrounded by microbes, viruses and bacteria and other parasites all the time, so they are potentially under attack all the time as well.
Many insects only live for a few weeks, but they still need to fight off harmful germs. As many bacteria have a lifespan of 20 minutes, having an immune system is definitely worthwhile for insects.
And they have a set of really important immune effectors, some which are very similar to what we have as humans. So for example, they have blood cells, which we call hemocytes, and these cells basically feed on bacteria that get into the bloodstream. And that's very similar to blood cells we have as humans, white blood cells. They also have a range of antimicrobial substances they produce. Again, humans and other mammals have antimicrobial substances as well, which are a bit like antibiotics.
The human body has a very adaptive immune system, which includes T cells that carry a memory of previous intruders. But insects also have some pretty effective tricks to kill pathogens.
If we did the same experiment with the same load of bacteria with a mouse or with a zebrafish, they would die of a septic shock. So in that respect, the insect immune system is more efficient.
The immune system of insects, much like the human immune system, is very complex. There are multiple mechanisms by which insects can actually attack invading microbes. One of these mechanisms is through so-called antimicrobial peptides, which are small protein-like molecules which are, have diverse ways of actually killing bacteria and fungi. And these are considered to be much more effective. They actually kill microbes much more rapidly than typical antibiotics that we know from, that are typically used in human medicine. Another key point is that there are several different types of these peptides in insect immune systems as well as human immune systems. And we think that this combinatorial, this large toolkit of peptides is actually an extremely effective way of dealing with a diverse range of microbes.
Antimicrobial peptides are the main component of the insect's immune defense. The human body also has similar proteins, but the antimicrobial peptides of insects are extremely quick killers.
These antimicrobial peptides are very efficient killers. They kill within seconds compared to hours, which any modern antibiotic does. And most of that happens through these immune cells, which actually basically gobble up bacteria which are in the bloodstream. And they are similar to immune cells we have also in the human immune system. They also then produce toxic substances which kill these bacterial cells. And that takes only a few hours really. And then we get a so-called induced immune defense. So the insects have ways of telling whether they are infected, similar to the human immune system, so they ramp up their immune defense to cope with the surviving bacteria and to avoid that the infection comes back. And during that time, they synthesize a lot of substances which are called antimicrobial peptides, and they get released 6 to 12 hours after the infection from an organ which has a function of storing fat but also producing immune substances, and they completely flood their bloodstream with these peptides, and these peptides then keep infections under control.
The reason why they call them evolutionarily ancient weapons is because we can find them in the insects, but also, for example, we humans produce them. So there is like an evolutionary, a shared evolutionary history because they are present in so diverse types of animals. Then we can actually say that they evolved very early when many years ago, before the animal kingdom diversified. So this is a very successful strategy.
The German researchers are also investigating the wax moth. When this insect enters the pupal stage, its old gut completely dissolves, releasing microbes that can spill over into the body. In this process, the wax moth also releases antimicrobial substances that control the number of microbes. Now the researchers want to understand if the bacteria become resistant to this antimicrobial cocktail. This is relevant because these microbes are very common in the environment.
Yeah, so there's very little natural resistance against these antimicrobial peptides produced by insects. And that's quite interesting because if you compare that to antibiotic-resistant bacteria, antibiotic resistance is actually really prevalent in the environment. And there are studies by colleagues in Canada on ice cores, so they date back 10,000 years, and you find resistant genes against modern-day antibiotics. The reason is that the modern-day antibiotics are all derived from natural organisms, which have been around for millions of years. And we think that's a fundamental difference between antimicrobial peptides and other antibiotics we use, is that it's much harder to evolve resistance for bacteria against antimicrobial peptides than it is against antibiotics.
This is a beewolf, another insect studied in the project. The beewolf brings dead honeybees into its nest to feed its offspring, but then it needs to prevent these dead honeybees from decomposing too quickly.
And so the beewolf has evolved a very close relationship with bacteria that grow on its antennae, so it has extra, basically like little pockets on its antenna, and these produce cocktails of antibiotics which beewolf uses to cover the bees and actually the brood cave to protect its own brood and the food, the dead honeybees, from fungi and bacteria, decomposing them, and therefore either killing directly the offspring of the beewolf or killing it indirectly by using up the food provisioning.
The beewolf has up to 45 different types of antimicrobial substances. Studying this arsenal could help humans develop new antibiotics, but not only this.
But we think that a different approach might actually be more fruitful, because insects always discharge cocktails of different antimicrobial peptides. And so that's basically equivalent to a combination therapy in medicine where you get a prescription of more than one drug, of usually combinations of drugs. That already happens, for example, when people treat tuberculosis. That's always a combination drug.
So the main goal of the project might not be identifying new drugs, but understanding how these cocktails were shaped in nature and why they are so successful in avoiding bacterial resistance.
It might help us using antibiotics again that are spent because resistance has evolved against them, but their interactions might rescue them. And it's also, I think, more sustainable because it starts from avoiding resistance evolution at the start rather than managing resistant bacteria when they have evolved.
In the future, the immune system of insects might give us some clues on how to fight antibiotic-resistant bacteria and also inspire new and more efficient treatments. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel so we can keep producing more of this kind of content. You can also support Sonder on Patreon. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below.